Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. As I kind of walk up to ending my podcast, there are some things that I personally wanted to leave for my listening community as to why I do certain things in my life and how things have shaped my life. This December, I will celebrate my 8th anniversary of doing podcasts. Most people don't make it 6 months, okay? And I've been doing this for 8 years and I have well over 400 podcasts. So I think it's probably time for me to move on, to do something different, and to focus energies in different directions. But in making that decision, I'm going to do several podcasts that are just me. Because someone said to me the other day when I mentioned to them that I was going to be ending my podcast, they said, Mary, we can find interviews with other people in a lot of different places and we'll survive. I said, okay, I'm glad. And then she said, but I don't know if we'll survive without you personally sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, your whys. And please, before you end this podcast, will you do a series of Just Mary ones? Well, today I decided that let's do one today. And what I want to talk to you about today, because as we're walking up, doesn't make it very universal, but we're walking up to Thanksgiving. So it's not evergreen. You might be watching this in May, but I'll tell you, the idea of gratitude and giving is so universal that it doesn't matter what time of year you listen to this. It's appropriate and it has purpose. When I was a little girl, and this is when The Wizard of Oz was, of course, TV was kind of a new thing in people's homes. I know that's odd to think about. I was born in 1953, and at age 5, The Wizard of Oz was on TV. And, of course, we didn't have color TV then. So The Wizard of Oz, as you recall, is filmed in black and white. And then at that one point, when she lands in Oz, it turns into color. And you get to see the Emerald City and all those things. We had black and white TV. And we didn't have color TV until the early 60s. And so I didn't get to see that transition. But it didn't change the impact that movie had on me. First of all, the impact of the lesson of gratitude for being right where you are and the lessons that are in your life. We often ask, how are these things happening to me? What have I done in my life that I deserve all of this happening to me? Instead of asking the pivotal question, which is, how are these things happening for me? And when we stop and ask that question, the emotion that comes, the first emotion that I usually feel is gratitude. I'm so grateful for these things. Now, when you're in the middle of the mud and you can barely pull your foot out of the muck to put it in front of you and then pull the next one out of the muck to put in front of you, it is really tough to look down at the muck and say, I'm so grateful for this. Thank you for being here, muck. You are incredible. And I love that you're providing this for me. I'm on the page. That's tough, okay? Especially sometimes the muck and the mud is so overwhelming that your foot, it actually holds the boot and your foot comes out and the boot is still stuck in the mud. So in order to get the boot out, you put your foot back in to the stuck boot and then reach down with your hands, grabbing it so-called by the bootstraps. That's where that phrase came from. You would grab the bootstraps that were on either side of the boot and work its way out of the mud until you could put it down again. If you've ever been in that situation, you know that it's not easy, and you know that it's oftentimes you lose your balance and fall. But in the lessons of life, we learn how to do this process without losing our balance. And having gratitude is one of the critical steps in being able to do this process of loosening your boot from the mud and the muck, pulling it up by the bootstraps so that you can set it down again, and then the next foot and the next foot until you are dry land. So what does this have to do with the Wizard of Oz? In the Wizard of Oz, at the end, when the wizard finally confesses who he really is, he gives each of the characters a gift. And to the Tin Man, he gives a heart. And he says to him, "You will be a philanthropist." And the Tin Man looks at him and he said, I don't know what that is. And the wizard said, "It's a do-gooder." As a young child, I heard that phrase. And I thought, that's what I want to do in my life. I want to be a do-gooder. I want to be someone whose life is evolved around doing good. Well, as most people, I lost sight of that. And as life dealt its lessons to me, and I began to see my feet stuck in the muck, and I didn't know how to get them out. I didn't know how to grab myself by the bootstraps and pull one up and maintain my balance and be able to put one foot in front of the other. I lost sight of being a do-gooder, and I became just focused on me. Poor me. I'm a victim. I'm stuck here in this muck. And when I try and move forward, what happens to me? I tip over. Well, along the way, you learn lessons. It took me a long time to learn my lessons. Little bit by little bit by little bit. But I would find myself once again stuck in the mud. But I'd learned maybe enough that I could make one more effort at moving the boot forward. Somewhere in my 50s, I'm hoping all of you have learned before that, I began to learn the absolute lessons that allowed me to move the feet forward, get the boot unstuck, maintain my balance, and move forward. And one of those critical lessons is gratitude. Gratitude then leads to something else, which I really want to talk about, is about service. And gratitude leads to giving and leads to transformation. Not to a new person, but to reclaiming the beautiful person that you were born to be, that you've always been. So the art of giving is truly an art. And it's something that each of us have to walk through in this life. You've heard me say many, many times on this podcast that the purpose of life for all of us is to be our very best self. Not to do anything, but to be our very best selves. And every day to bring our very best. Some days we fall short of what we think is our best, but it was probably the very best we had to offer any day. So how can you be critical of yourself, or how can anything more be asked of you than your very best? Isn't that amazing to think that no matter what you bring on a given day, if it's all you have to give, that's your very best? But when you step back and you get to relook at and learn, understand lessons, question the process, then learning happens, and the next day your best self is something different. Now, many people say to me, "Mary, that's kind of a narcissistic approach to life, that you're just focused on you and being your best self." Well, if that were the end of the equation, that would probably be true. But when you are being your very best self, you want something critical also, and that is you want others to be their very best self. It's never singular. Being your best self doesn't mean I want to make sure Mary has the best clothes. I want to make sure Mary's driving the best car. I want to make sure Mary has the best friends. I want to make sure Mary has the most money. I want to make sure Mary has this and that and this and that. That's not being my best self. That's being so much less than my best self. That's being self-centered. That is being narcissistic. And that comes out of a feeling of that I'm not enough. And I need to surround myself with all of these things so that I can be enough. Well, we were born into this life, butt naked, with nothing. And at that moment, we were at our greatest worth. We came as an innocent child, full of worth, full of being enough. But along the way, that's part of the process. We lose sight of that, of the beautiful person that we are and our own self-worth. Now, don't bemoan the fact that your childhood or your middle 30s or your middle 50s are bringing you less than the light that shines within. It's okay. That's the process. That's why we're here, to reclaim our best self, to reclaim the self-worth that we were born with. As we go through this process of being our very best self, this key of wanting it for others is a great self-check to see where you are in that process. If you look at your social media, and you see other people's posts, and your thoughts are, how come I wasn't invited to that? Or I could have gone. Or, oh, look at those clothes they're wearing. Like, I don't have anything like that. I'm not good enough to have that. Or if you say, you're critical. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Or, look at that. I think she's got something stuck in her tooth, blah, blah. Or, her opinions and her thought process are dumb. Those are reflections of how you feel about yourself. To be honest, not how you feel about others, but how you feel about yourself. If you're feeling the need to be critical of others, that finger just points right back at you. When I hear others being critical of people, I feel a bit of sadness inside because I know that what they're truly doing is being critical of themselves. And when you get to the point where you can look at your social media, or others in the workplace, or others in your neighborhood, or others in your community, or your siblings, or whatever connection it is, and feel gratitude for what they're experiencing, and grateful for where we are in our lives, you know you are on the track to being your best self. And that is a beautiful place to be. That is a huge part of my why for giving. I'm more giving now than I ever have been in my life. Well, it's a darn good thing because I'm older and I've learned more. But when I first started down the road of philanthropy, I'm going to be butt naked honest with you here and completely vulnerable and naked. Okay, I did it to get the praise of man. I gave because I thought others would think me something great. I served so I could see and point to others and say, look what I'm doing. Look, that makes me enough, right? If I do that. It was from that point that I began to realize that that level of giving had nothing to do with my best self and had nothing to do with the kind of giving that we're talking about. When I think about the wealthiest people that I know, well, they don't live on this planet. I don't care what you call people who are in higher beings than ourselves, whether you call them God, whether you call them higher beings, whether you call them the universe or spiritual energy. The thing we know about that is that all of that energy is directed to helping us be our best selves. They have achieved their best selves and are continually growing more. But their biggest growth now happens as they help us achieve our best selves. They're not up there going, I got my stuff now, I'm in good shape, good luck down there on earth, and I hope you make it here someday. Absolutely not. Their biggest goal is to share everything they have with us so that we can find our best selves. That's the role model that was set up for us. Not to be better than and gloat about it, because that simply reflects our own lack of self-worth. But to say, this is where I am, and I want everyone to have this. And I see where you are, and I want to come where you are as well. And I see your light, and I want to understand your light. I see your level of giving, and I want to raise myself to that. Not for I can be better, but so that I can be my best self in my own eyes and achieve who I was meant to be. There was a time in my 50s that I thought, well, someday I'm going to be able to be the kind of philanthropist that I see around me. Someday I'm going to have enough to give those levels. Well, guess what? I never am going to achieve the level of financial giving that so many of the people that I attend these galas with have. I see them give 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, 500,000. I see them pledge $1 million. I'm never going to be at that level. So what is my level? And how do I decide what I can give? Well, I'll tell you. I don't like the phrase, give until it hurts, because I never want giving to hurt. I want giving to bring you alive. I want giving to be something that you do because it's who you are and what you want for yourself and others. So this is an example. About a month ago, someone reached out to me and asked me if I would commit to a monthly donation to an organization. It was a small amount. And they said, Mary, if you give a small amount on a monthly donation and you can gather your friends to help give this same small amount, we're going to be able to achieve big things. And I stopped and thought for just a minute. And this was in an email, so I had time to respond. And I thought, oh, I've given so much to this organization and this one and this one. I really need to save the rest and take care of myself because I want to make sure that I also have enough, which is important. Don't take me wrong. Caring for yourself is also important. But I really want to support this organization. So the next credit card statement that came, I went through it. And I thought, I just need to come up with $25 a month. Right off the bat, I saw a subscription to Paramount. I'm like, that's like $17 a month, and I never watch it. I immediately canceled it. Bang, I was there. Then I saw a donation to another organization that I no longer was particularly supporting, and I canceled that donation. Between those two, I had more than enough to commit to another financial donation to another nonprofit. Giving for me is not always the easiest route, but I look for ways that I can do it. I love to travel, but sometimes I have to take from my travel budget and say, you know what? I'm not going to go here this year because I want to do this. And I love this more than the trip I would be taking. Did I tell you I love to shop? I'm kind of a shoe hound. Oh. And I love to shop at really nice places and go in and just like have clothes that are really like spot on. But I've decided in my life, you know what? I can let that go. I don't ever need to walk into Nordstrom's or Saks Fifth Avenue or Neiman Marcus again. I am doing just fine in this shirt from Shein. It cost me $7.99. And that allows me to save money to be able to support the things I support. You know, it's not so much about how much you give. It's that you give and that you see this need on a continual basis for people. You want to lift them up. Now, in the nonprofit world, I see a lot of things. I see people who give because they want to be seen and thought of as philanthropists or humanitarians. I see a lot of people who give because of social pressure from their peers. I see a lot of people who give and give a lot, but not to ever really have other people come to their level. I mean, like, I want the people in Africa not to starve, but I don't want you to live next to me. Does that make sense? They want to help people, but on a limited basis. So they still have everything that they need. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want you to have everything that you need. I do. Do I want you to live an abundant life? I do. But an abundant life also means that you want that for others. Someone said to me the other day, Mary, have you achieved everything that you thought you would? Are you where you want to be? And I said to them, you know, I could live in that spot of, I never quite made it to where I wanted it to be. I wish I had this. Or I could live in, I still want to be in a bigger house. Really? There's just two of us, John and I. I don't need a bigger house, for crying out loud. But to step into gratitude, I am so grateful for what I have. And that I have enough to give. And that I have enough to support. I'm so grateful that I have John in my life. I'm so grateful that I've been able to do this podcast and to talk with you. I'm so grateful for my family and my grandchildren. I travel enough to know that I am so grateful for the land that I live in and for the United States. Now, you and I both know that I have strong political opinions, and I don't like where we are politically. Doesn't mean that I'm still not so grateful for where we live and for the opportunity to be a supporter of what I stand for and what I believe to be right. I'm so grateful for that. I just got back from Egypt. It was my bucket trip of a lifetime. I spent more on that trip than I will ever spend on any trip to come or any trip in the past. And I came back with such gratitude for little things. That in my house, I can turn on my water faucet, wet my toothbrush, brush my teeth, spit it out, rinse my mouth out with the water from my faucet, and go on about my day. In so many of the countries I travel to, you have to have a water bottle just to wash your teeth. You have to wet your toothbrush with the water bottle. You have to brush, then clean your toothbrush with the water bottle, the water that's in there. Rinse your mouth out with that water. It doesn't feel quite the same as splashing it up on your mouth when you're just like drinking, squishing, and spitting it out. I came home with such gratitude for clean water. I came home with gratitude for a sewer system. In places I travel, most of the time, you cannot put the toilet paper in the toilet. And the reason and the way you know that you're in a place like that is they have a trash can next to the toilet where you're supposed to put your toilet paper. Okay? Not in the toilet or it clogs up their system. They don't have a great sewer system like we have here in the United States. I am so grateful for that. I am so grateful that I don't have to put my stinky toilet paper in the wastebasket. And that I'm not the person that has to clean that. But I'm more than happy to give my love, my support, my service to all of those places that do live there. I've traveled to so many countries to be of service places where I'm squatting over a hole in the ground. And the smell is horrendous. I cannot even describe it to you. But I am more than willing to give my time and energy to serve there, to teach them. In Kenya, when we went and taught how to sew underwear as their first line of defense against rape, their protection against genital mutilation and the infection that brings, when we taught them how to have underwear to women who spend their lives sitting in dirt and just wear a wraparound, I was more than willing to give up the convenience of a toilet and of using water bottles for my toothpaste to be there to serve them. So many people ask me, how difficult is it to go there to serve? You know, it's much easier to stay here. It truly is. But my heart is drawn to make their lives better, to give until the point where I know that I'm giving the most that I can give at this point in time. I'm no longer working. I have to live on what I've saved. So every time I give, it's an opportunity for me to look and to make a decision and to decide. Gone are the days where I could just buy what I wanted. Now I'm making decisions. But I want to be a do-gooder. I want my presence here on this planet for however many years I'm here to have made a difference. And that's why I give. That's why I find this month of November and the season of gratitude and giving to be so profound. And that we can carry this with us throughout the year. I posted on I do a Monday mantra every Monday. Well, I missed the last 2 weeks because I was gone. I do a Monday mantra where I usually give people something to think about or to live for or to post on their bathroom mirror for the day. And today, mine was a question. And it was, which comes first? Gratitude or healing? I want you to think on that for just a minute. What comes first? Healing or gratitude? Do you heal first and then you're grateful for it? Or are you grateful and step into gratitude and find the healing from the being that you are as you are grateful? I believe that gratitude comes first. If healing is part of your life, and this is the great thing, it's part of all of our lives. We are all in the process of eternally healing and becoming more of the beings that we were meant to be. As we step into gratitude, that healing flows to us abundantly. As I am content in my life and find myself wanting for nothing, my mind is more available to ponder on the deep things of life and how we got to where we are and how I can improve my life and the lives of others. Sense of gratitude is so important to me. Now, I can tell you that I understand where you are. I haven't always had this kind of profound sense of gratitude and contentment for my life. I get it. But I do know that in finding gratitude, it was my key to finding my way out. After 28 years of an abusive marriage, where every single day I wondered if I would be beat up. With every single day I feared coming home. With every single day I wondered, will I be able to survive? To finally be able to go to my former husband and wrap my arms around him and say thank you. Thank you for the lessons that I learned in our relationship. Thank you. Together we both have learned, and we both are happier. We both are better human beings. That took me a long time to get to that point of being absolutely immersed in gratitude for that relationship. I am who I am today because of that. When I was in the middle of it, nope, I could not seem to grab my boot and pull it up by the bootstraps. Yes, I was able to do it enough to survive day to day, but not to heal. It wasn't until I stepped into genuine gratitude and the art of giving back that I began to truly heal inside. When I say to people, I see you, I say that a lot. I see their hearts through their eyes. When I hold them, I feel the energy of their hearts. And I ask myself, what is the energy? How are they feeling? What is it that I am here for, that I can serve them? A whole new world has opened up to me as I have begun this process of asking myself that every time I embrace someone. If you've ever been embraced by me, you could know I was asking that question. Sometimes I'm given inspiration to share. And with many of you, I've probably done that. Sometimes I'm given the thought to step back, be quiet, and allow them to be in the energy of their space. We all are on this journey at our own pace. Heaven knows my pace was rather slow. I talk to so many people who are like at these incredible, profound levels of understanding in their 30s and 40s. My daughter, for example, is in her early 30s. She has the most profound level of understanding. Just think where she is going to be, where you are going to be when you get to be my age. You are going to be so far beyond me. You're going to have so much compassion, so much empathy for people. You're going to have so much understanding of how the human race works, how the universe works, and your role in it. I know this. So this holiday season, as we walk through Thanksgiving and as we walk into Christmas and celebrate the joys of giving, celebrate the joys of family, the piece I want you to think about is your why. Your why for giving. And if it's anything less than so that you can be your best self and help others be their best self, this is the season to relook, to reshare, to re-examine. Am I giving to an organization just because I'm expected to? Or am I giving because I have a desire to make a difference? Because I know that giving is part of being my very best self. And that truly is the purpose of life. Does it make sense that we all have different purposes in this life? The purpose is the same. Now, the method of getting there and our goals and our journeys are each unique. And we each walk our own unique path of how we are becoming our best selves. But the purpose of growing into your best self is truly universal. Every morning when I swing my feet out of my bed and I sit up, I look down at my feet And you've heard me say this on the podcast before many times. And I say, okay, feet, where are we going today? Are you going to bring your best self at every moment? Not always. But can you bring yourself, best self, most of the time? I think through my day, and this morning I thought about my podcast, and I thought, can you bring your very best self, your naked and authentic self, the self that knows that you can be your best self by helping others be their best self? Truly, there's no other reason for doing this podcast. Is it because I want to spend money? I could be giving this money someplace else, which I'm going to be doing soon. Am I doing this podcast so I can become more famous? Well, I don't have that big a following. There's other things I could be doing to become more famous, if that was the goal. I do this podcast because I want to put forth ideas and things that will cause you to ponder. What does your best self look like? Am I living in gratitude? Is my life one of abundance? If you are living in gratitude, you are surely living in abundance. You cannot have one without the other. Or are you living in that place of, well, I will live in abundance when? I want to share with you in closing something that happened to me in my 30s. And I had in my life, I've probably had 4 or 5 profound dreams that changed the trajectory of my life. This one was in my probably late 30s. I dreamed I was at work, and I owned a catering business. And I had an office, and we had a little front office. And when I looked out in the front office, there were 2 angels sitting in the front office. And people were coming in the front door and sharing with the angels what they needed. The angels would listen. They would have them be seated. They would come back into my office. And the 2 angels shared with me what they needed. And then I would provide it. When I woke from this dream, I thought to myself, oh, I do get to be the Tin Man. I do get to be a do-gooder. I can't wait for the day when I can do that. Oh, I'm so excited to know that that's going to be part of my life in the future. I kept that dream close to my heart for 2 or 3 years and never shared it with anyone. Then one day, I shared it with someone. And I said to them in excitement, isn't it exciting to know that someday I'm going to get to be a do-gooder? Someday I am going to be able to be the granter of wishes. I'm going to be able to help people the way I've always wanted to. And the person I shared it with turned to me and said one of the most profound things that changed the trajectory of my life. And they said, Mary, don't you know that you already are? I sat dumbfounded. And I said, I'm not granting wishes. I don't have that kind of money. I'm not helping the way I want to help. And she said, Mary, you do all you can do. I've seen people walk in this front door of your catering business and not have money, and you to help them out with meals and bring them into the kitchen and feed them. Mary, I've seen you give money that you didn't have to help others in a situation. I've seen you go door to door and ask your neighbors for money for Santa, and then get the gifts and take them and deliver them unwrapped to a family in need. That's granting wishes. That's who you are. And this sense of profound gratitude came over me for her words. That I didn't have to wait until I was in my 40s at that point, till I was in my 50s, 60s, 70s to become a do-gooder. That I could do it by simply opening my heart and giving what I had. That's the invitation I offer to you, to not wait, to step into the life that you were meant to live, the life of being your best self and helping others be theirs. And a joyous Christmas and a beautiful Thanksgiving to you and yours. And that's how we craft our meaning for life. Namaste.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.